Okay, that was Mushoku Tensei, Season 1, Episode 11. What a good episode, dude. I love this show right now. It's so...
I love that this episode opened up the world again to us and the scale that we didn't even understand of that disaster.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how close-minded of me to think that only Ghislaine, Rudy, and Eris were affected by that disaster when even Roxy could see it. You know, and all those other characters that we haven't met yet were checking it out or talking about it before it happened, you know?
I just assumed it was, like, that area, right?
Yeah, like, just a very... But the fact that it actually expanded out and killed people, and that there are people
Zenith is missing. Lilia, Aisha...
Paul has Norn.
First things first, why these people? Why are they missing? Why do you think? Do you have any ideas? Other than it just being RNG, like, random?
They could be... I don't know. I mean, we've seen...
They're all women.
True. We've seen Paul fight just quickly in sequences. So it could be interesting to see how... if Zenith, Lilia, and Aisha are together, it could be cool since Zenith was a part... You know, maybe they meet up with Ghislaine, or maybe Zenith, just like Zenith and Lilia are this awesome duo that I could totally see being the case, and they are going to get back home themselves too.
That'd be cool.
And that's the whole point, is because it's more fulfilling to have Paul be the one that was the only one that survived at home and now writes this letter on the board. It's much more satisfying to have him write that letter. I thought it
was so cool to see that like, to hear that from Paul, like, acknowledge his shortcomings, and he doesn't have the monetary, like, you know, like, he's not able to fulfill what he's asking with compensation,
with, like,
you know?
A reward, yeah.
But it's like a plea to those who know him and, like, know the people he's talking about and just wanting help. And he's even asking Rudy for it, you know?
I think that it being Paul and that letter definitely parallels what Rudy is going through in this episode, with this kind of, like, consequences for his actions, what he wants to protect, who actually means something to him that he wants to do good by, life and death. Like, Paul is the character that, you know, from first couple episodes in, even Rudy was describing as scummy, and we get this idea that there's a lot of people who have ill feelings toward Paul, and he's the one now that has lost all of the people he cares about and is searching for them, and he knows now that people won't help him. And I feel like Rudy is currently in this episode discovering some of those ideas. So I think that it was kind of perfect, the choice.
I completely agree. He said that his fortune was gone in that little, you know, what would you say, letter?
Yeah.
I guess, like help.
Bulletin.
Yeah, bulletin. And I assume that's from his family's, like, heritage, right? Or something that he had built up over the course of, like, his own journeys and adventures.
You could just say that once your house is completely gone, you probably put all your money into it, and whatever money was in it is probably scattered.
And they're going to I'm gonna butcher this, Milis continent, which is where Zenith's home was, and if there is, like, a full community of Zeniths, I would love to see that. I would feel like Rudy going to Roxy's home.
Home. Obviously, we also get Roxy at the very beginning. She traveled because of this disaster, I'm assuming, to maybe find Rudy or see if he's okay. Because she does, when we see her witness what's happening, she wonders either something along the lines of, does he have anything to do with it, or is he going to be okay? Is he okay?
Yeah.
I can't exactly remember what she says when she looks across the sky and sees it.
Yeah, but she had great intuition, because there is apparently a bulletin full of people who have died, like, from the snap or something. It's crazy. But I'm going to put myself out there. Fang's the Black Wolf, right?
Yeah,
they kind of look like some of the silhouettes we got.
Yeah.
Like,
it has to be.
I need to hear them talk more. I want to know their personalities. I want to know who we don't have, why they've come, if they're like here to support Paul and try to help him out, you know. I think that's the connection with Roxy, right? You know Paul, and they're probably going to be adventuring together going forward, right?
I do wonder if Paul will be involved at all, but the only hang up is that he has Norn. So he also doesn't have the capability or ability to go off and do anything crazy in order to find everyone.
Well, I wonder.
He also has a baby he's carrying.
I wonder if that's why he's going to the Millis continent. I wonder if he's
to
going
drop
to
the
Zenith's
baby off at
home,
Zenith's.
if she has family there, perhaps.
He did say he was stopping by with Lilia's family too. I guess probably just to check in with them, see if they heard anything.
I want more of the Fangs of the Black Wolf. I need it. I want to know like how cool they are. And it seems like Paul, even though Rudy didn't see the letter, he was entrusting Rudy, hopefully, with clearing out the North Central continent or searching it.
Yeah.
Which I wish we had like a map in front of us, but from my loose understanding, I could imagine us getting to that like area if we continue on our journey.
I just want to know where Ghislaine is in all of this.
I could see us like opening up an episode in the next few episodes, like getting a little piece of where she's
traveling. Maybe something that parallels or is similar
Ghislaine
to
alone.
When she was alone and we saw that flashback when she was telling Eris how much she needed to learn math.
And now she's like thriving. She has riches. She's plentiful of food.
Like...
Yeah, because all thanks to Rudy.
All thanks to Rudy.
I cannot believe how much I like this episode. There was so much going on in like the 22 minutes that it filled. I love the creatures and how even the less important ones get their own names, like Almond Anaconda. The animation was great. I don't know. I guess I'm always taken aback at the consistency of real feeling problems and issues in regards to Rudy's like psyche and morality, and how often it comes up because like for some reason I've developed occasionally this trust and belief in him because he has previous knowledge, but especially this episode, just because he has a lot to learn and a lot to think and a lot of growth to happen, because we've talked about his emotional intelligence and like perversion potentially coming from a lack of internal growth, right? And him being like emotionally stunted. But that could happen in other aspects of his life too. He's never lived in this world before. There's a lot of things that he can't account for.
Yes, and the other thing is that I think there's an overconfidence that comes with having like, oh, well, I maybe have kind of this outside experience that I can then bring forth in order to play this game properly, you know, and get good results because I have this outside knowledge. But he doesn't know about these monsters. By the end of the episode, with the last monster, he turns to Rudyard and he's like, can we win this? And I think that's like, a perfect example of the reality is that he doesn't actually know the true threats of this world, the true dangers, and how strong he actually is in relation to the other parts of the world and monsters in the world. And I was so interested with this idea of like bringing the fact that his character kind of tries to outsmart, outwit, use his knowledge in order to gain something, plays it somewhat like a game still. But here we have, like, we've had consequences of him playing it like a game, but they've been minuscule. You know, they've been like, oh, that wasn't the right line to say to that character, and they didn't respond well to it, even though he thought they would.
Yeah. And
that he'd get bonus points or whatever. But this had, like, he was playing with actual lives in this scenario.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like he was playing a game where he could see the health bars of Kurt and the other member of the Toughs and then the two enemies. It's not like he could actually see what damage they would, like, enact on each other.
Well, you know, it's interesting. If you think of it through the lens of a video game in all aspects, because you're right. But at a certain point in Rudy's mind, when the way he prioritizes things in his mind, he would put like all of his goals above these people's lives, right? But when you look at it from a video game standpoint, and how he has made that comparison. In my opinion, the hardest thing to convey in a video game nowadays is death. And I think that perhaps Rudy is on the same type of path, because from what we know in video games, oh, members of your party die, they'll come back next round, or I can just restart the game. I die, I'll just start a new game, I'll respawn, but it's this like permanence and severity of death that we've had a couple times now. When he sees it and the blood in front of him, it's something that like he isn't prepared for, and he, as much as maybe he'd like to think he is.
Right, like we had him having that realization of life and death being a reality in this world when he is trying to save Eris, probably like around episode 4, somewhere in there, episode 3 maybe. And it was probably a little later than that, actually. Yeah. And he has the blood literally in front of him and he's shocked by it. But that was, what he was reacting to there was the fact of his episode own 6. Life or death.
Yeah.
His own life. And here we have this realization that he could help people and then it takes someone else's life. And I think that it's a great kind of continuation of what happens last episode with Ruijerd taking someone's life and Rudy being so against it. But now here it's Rudy's fault in a way because of his inaction. And in a video game sense, this whole situation, this is just kind of like not off topic, but I think it fits. This whole situation reminded me of older Fire Emblem games where you like, it's not the casual play, you actually lose units, they actually die and you can't continue on with them. But in a lot of maps, there is a character that you could recruit, but they also could die because they're also getting attacked.
Yeah.
And you could also die, so you need to prioritize. And you were saying that he has this list of priorities, and that's what it made me think of. Like, obviously, if you're playing on this Fire Emblem map, your priority is that the people you have that you want to keep live, and then you try to also save that person at the same time, but you have to prioritize. But when it comes to like actual life and death of what Rudy's experiencing here, this is his life and what he's truly seeing and not a video game he's playing, it's so much like you choosing to let that person die. You're actually choosing to let a person die. It's not just like a little pixel art character in a video game you're playing.
It's such a good way to convey that Rudy's an actual person with emotions and feelings, because what would it mean for you as a person or a character in a show to be able to remove yourself and disassociate yourself from that tragic or traumatic, aspect of having somebody die in front of you because you're able to look at it like a video game? No, it brings us back to the emotions that Rudy is feeling that he might not necessarily expect to, or how things play out in a way that he doesn't expect them to.
It's like he keeps realizing that he can't disassociate.
Yeah.
It's
complex, right?
Right. And I think there's also this layered complexity of selfishness in his priorities. Like, obviously his main goal of getting Eris home and helping the reputation of the Superds.
Yeah.
Totally, selfless. Totally a good goal. But then there's the selfishness layered onto it of childish schemes in order to build this reputation quickly that take other people's lives as something that it could cost.
Quote unquote childish
That's
schemes.
what he used. That's the words that Rudy used.
Yeah,
later on in the episode.
I'm quoting it to try to like bridge the gap in between my next point of Ruijerd and Rudy and their potential relationship. Because earlier in the episode, when Ruijerd pinned Rudy to a tree and like they were, you let a child die just for that, and this is our problem, I was like, my first inkling, which I later thought wasn't true, was that Ruijerd might think or realize that Rudy isn't just a child mentally. But then later on, I was like, no, that's not the case. But what's going to happen if and when that realization ever comes? What would Ruijerd like feel about the betrayal of like the whole aspect of being a child in this world is a sense of innocence, and Ruijerd wanted to protect that. And to bring it back there, like at the end of the episode, he said that it was like a childish scheme, right?
Mhm.
Is that like a play of manipulation onto Ruijerd from Rudy, being like,
Interesting.
okay, I know that like, I know how he looks at things, you know?
Yeah. Because when you open that up, it makes you think, well, if Eris was the one in charge here and stalled Ruijerd from going in and saving the toughs, would he be pinning Eris against the tree in the same way and saying the same thing to her? It's funny because you're bringing up this thing that I think is really prevalent, which is sometimes Ruijerd talks to Rudy as if he is not a child.
And an adventurer or adult.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
And that is a thing that's there, and I think that is great to highlight, that they're on a different level of communication and dialogue than what I would guess would be the case if it was Eris or Kurt.
Yeah, and what do you think? What do you think Ruijerd would feel if he ever learned that Rudy was actually the mind of an adult inside?
If he learned it last episode or this episode, I think the reaction would be not as great as it could be going forward. I think that they are coming to major understandings of each other and peace with each other by the end of the episode, with this awareness of like what each other are going through and who the other person is. Like Ruijerd admits that he is now aware of all that is going on in Rudy's brain and all that he is thinking and worrying about and trying to figure out, and that's a lot of burden for anyone to hold, even a child, but even an adult. That is a lot for someone to hold, to feel like they have all of the responsibility on their shoulders and they're trying to think of everything for the group, for the best well-being of the group. And this kind of path that they're now taking, that Rudy is taking a step with, of now choosing to trust in the brains and the hearts of the people that he is traveling with, to now have dead-end strategy meetings. Like, I think that that there's a level of awareness and understanding now that would help any reaction to finding out what's truly going on in Rudy's brain.
I love him so much, Ruijerd. Like, we've only had him for a few episodes, but like, it's not, I love him on one hand because any character like this who swoops into an anime and fills this similar role, I'd be like, oh, badass, I love it. But there's so much more to him. Like, he's around death so much, and that is the one thing he is trying to get his race furthest away from. And it's not like, it's just so interesting to see his reaction, and I'm always wondering what's going on in his mind.
Yeah, and they gave him this temper, this quick temper. There's also some growth that he will probably go through and has gone through, because of what Kurt says to him when Kurt's hanging onto his arm, of the fact, like, this whole conversation of, like, I was treating you like a child, you're an adventurer, you're a warrior, and by the end of the episode, Ruijerd tells Rudy he's a warrior, and I think that there's something, he realizes that he needs to give children kind of more credit as being thinking and feeling humans, and not just these little things that you need to protect. It makes you think, well, if Eris was the one in charge here and stalled Ruijerd from going in and saving the toughs, it makes you think, well, if Eris was the one in charge here and stalled Ruijerd from going in and saving the toughs, if Eris was the one in charge here and stalled Ruijerd.
If Eris was the one in charge here and stalled Ruijerd